Meanwhile, the House of Representatives is meeting right now with lawmakers, gearing up for key votes today on two of the president's major legislative priorities. They will vote on the massive bipartisan infrastructure package and a social spending bill covering everything from child care to climate change. Democratic leaders have worked on these bills for months, but there seems to have been a renewed sense of urgency after the party's losses on Election Day. Lawmakers are hoping to show the people and the president they can get things done. Nikole Killion joins us now from Capitol Hill to discuss. Nikole, break down the timeline for us today. What needs to happen to get this vote done? And before lawmakers go on a break, they're going on a break, which is, I think, for a lot of Americans, mind-blowing. I mean, everybody else is not going on a break. We only get Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, well, look, I'm going to stick away from predicting anything with regards to timing because, as we've seen so many times with this particular piece of legislation, a lot of the deadlines have shifted. But we do expect at some point today that House Democrats will vote on this Build Back Better Act, which represents President Biden's top priorities. We often refer to it as a social spending or a social infrastructure package because it covers everything from child care to climate. And then separate from that, you're going to see the House also vote on a bipartisan infrastructure bill, which actually cleared the Senate a couple months back, and it's kind of been waiting in the wings until negotiations got hammered out on that broader social spending package. So that's what we're expecting right now. So far this morning, Republicans have tried to gum up the works a bit, slow things down with some procedural votes. But that being said, as I mentioned, we do expect at some point, that the House will clear this, at which point then this will get kicked over to the Senate later in the month. As for this break that they're taking, look, part of it is because of Veterans Day. But again, many wonder if for some reason they can't get it done today, would they have to stay next week? That doesn't appear likely at this point. As you know, Congress recesses quite a bit, and really the hope among members is that they can use this time in their district if they in fact pass this bill today to try to sell it to their constituents.
So one of the big challenges when it has come to this social spending bill is that it needs to be paid for. The latest analysis from the Treasury Department claims that the social spending plan would be paid for fully, and it would actually reduce the deficit. But still, there are moderate Democrats that are really hung up on the price tag. Why is that?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think Senator Manchin probably articulated it best earlier this week. In his view, he thought that the bill and thinks that the bill could be full of shell games and budget gimmicks. I mean, that is his concern because especially now that lawmakers have added some provisions in, many moderates are concerned that we really don't have a full assessment of the cost and the impact of such massive legislation like this. And typically these types of bills get what is called a CBO score. It's scored by the Congressional Budget Office, and so we haven't seen that yet. Now, what many members have argued is that, well, portions of the bill have already been scored, so it's not as relevant. But again, there have been so many moving parts and changes to this legislation up until, the final vote, up until, the last minute, as late as last night. Lawmakers were still working on various drafts. So there is some real concern that, until we see that final text, until we see that final score, then we're a little hesitant to sign on. But that being said, clearly the Speaker feels that she has the votes at this point, hopefully, which is why we're seeing this process advance today. And again, as you mentioned, they're out next week. So if they don't do it now, the question becomes when.
So can we also talk about the bipartisan infrastructure bill, Nikole? What's the status there?
So again, we expect the House will vote on that in short order once they get through this Build Back Better Act, the social spending plan. And again, keep in mind, this is $1.2 trillion in new infrastructure spending that would go more towards traditional infrastructure, things like roads, bridges, rail, broadband. This is something that was carefully crafted earlier this year by a bipartisan group of lawmakers, namely folks like Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema and others. And again, this passed the Senate back in August. It was actually supposed to be voted on in September, but again, because of fundamental disagreements over that larger social spending package, many progressives in particular expressed concern about moving forward with infrastructure until they could get some guarantees on the president's Build Back Better plan. And so now that it appears all of that has been worked out, that is why we are now seeing this vote on infrastructure, even though it's kind of happening after the fact.
Different topic. The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol says there's another round of subpoenas that are about to be delivered. Do we know who's on the list?
So we don't, but look, the committee has said for a while, or hinted for a while, that there could be some more subpoenas coming, and again, unclear who they may subpoena at this point. Congressman Benny Thompson was speaking to reporters yesterday, and when he was asked about whether any lawmakers might be on that list, he did say that that was unlikely. But look, we do know that the committee remains very interested in speaking to individuals, particularly those who were close to the former president. One person in particular, John Eastman, kind of a legal pundit, if you will, who was very instrumental in crafting these legal memos surrounding some of the president's false election claims. He is someone who is of high interest, John Eastman, so unclear if he, for instance, might be subpoenaed as part of this next batch, but that is something that we will be watching. But, overall, the committee says that they are getting a lot of cooperation from individuals, some 150 individuals at this point. There have been some reports that the committee may sit down today with Jeffrey Clark, who is a former Department of Justice official who also at one point the former president thought about putting him in the position of Attorney General to kind of promote and pursue some of his false election claims. But that is somebody who has been on the committee's radar as well. And like I said, he reportedly may sit down with the committee today, although many committee members that we spoke to wouldn't confirm that to us directly.
All right, Nikole, I know it's going to be really busy for you today, so we appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you.
Well, that means I'll just see you again and see you soon.
Thank you very much, Nikole, as always.
You bet.